what we really value with CEO is that it is at the front end of research.
Companies now are looking down the road at what are the changes going to be 10, 20, 50 years from now. And so everything from technology to demographic shifts to changes in economic power, climate change.
So as the world is more global, as we're all connected 24/7, as everything that happens in each country is instantly available anywhere in the world, you have to have people who are ahead of you.
The Center for Effective Organizations was formed 35 years ago, in 1979. It began as an idea in the head of faculty members from USC's Organizational Behavior Department, and soon made history by becoming the first university-based research center of its kind.
I came as a new faculty member here with an idea of wanting to do research that's useful to organizations and recognized that at USC there was a chance to create a unique kind of center that really at that point existed nowhere in the world.
USC's Marshall School of Business provided the early startup support for the center, and within 2 years the center became fully self-sufficient through the support of its early sponsors. Located at the business school, CEO is a full-time research center with a dedicated and knowledgeable staff who support the center's sponsors network, educational programs, annual meetings, and events. Along with this support, the center's many years of collaborative research with USC's faculty has helped CEO emerge as one of the leading research centers for organizational effectiveness.
There's a real complementary focus. The Marshall School and the research they do there is cutting edge. They're really developing some of the state-of-the-art concepts and theories over there. And with CEO, we have a very applied kind of reputation.
In 1979, the business world looked a lot different from the high-tech, knowledge-based global organizations we see today. The U.S. had reached its peak as the world's leading manufacturer with over 13 million jobs. The HR function was still being called personnel services. And the reality of a laptop, a smartphone, an app, or a webinar was still a ways into the future.
The evolution of technology has been stunning, and everything we do is infused with technology now.
The speed of how you do business and how clients expect you to respond to them and do business with them changed a lot of things that we do in the center.
CEO was a small operation in its early years with only 5 corporate sponsors. Each year, CEO added a number of pioneering researchers who brought innovative perspectives to the center's early research areas. It became a community of researchers and staff dedicated to advancing knowledge around organizational issues. The center has always been home to researchers with diverse interests and research backgrounds, from economics and organizational psychology to strategy management.
The really wonderful thing about CEO is you can identify what it is you want to study based on what value you think you can add to corporations and to the challenges that they face.
When we come to them with a problem, we get to skip the first 10 steps because they know why we have that problem, they know why we're asking the question.
In 1985, the center published its first of a series of books on how to do research that is useful to both theory and practice. The center's early research areas focused on employee management practices that improved organizational performance, along with people's quality of work life.
We started with a primary focus really on the relationship between individuals and complex organizations, and looking for ways to manage and organize people that would be a positive for them and for the organization.
The study of employee participation took researchers to the floors of many high-involvement plants and manufacturing startups across the country, where they designed and researched participation groups, quality circles, and self-managing work teams. These initiatives were the early stages of the quality movement in corporations. Wanting to track the results of their research and design, CEO surveyed the top Fortune 1000 companies from 1987 to 2005 on their adoption of employee involvement practices. To be considered a high-involvement organization, researchers found that information and decision-making power had to be shared at all levels. Rewards systems had to be designed to connect employees to business strategy and success. And knowledge about leadership, team building, and other skills had to be learned through continuous skills training. Most companies, however, were adopting these practices in small degrees, so researchers helped organizations to transform their operations into high-involvement systems more effectively. Technology and globalization in the late 80s and early 90s forced many companies to rethink how they were designed. The knowledge-based economy began to quickly outpace the manufacturing economy, signaling a new era of strategic talent and human capital. More and more companies move towards team-based work designs to keep up with these competitive pressures. CEO researchers worked on finding ways to design teams for the new knowledge work environments, launching a series of 3 10-company studies that progressively looked at the design and fundamental design change for knowledge work teams. Researchers found that team-based organizations became flatter and more cross-functional in order to house operations that cut across units. Connecting all of CEO's research is the underlining issue of change and learning how to change effectively over time.
Ed and I had been having conversations about where does organization change and organization development need to go. And that was the basis of our book called Built to Change. It laid out a vision for how organizations could be put together in such a way that they saw change as a very normal way of operating.
4,700 executives from over 59 companies of survey data and financial analysis from 23 industries over 32 years and counting define CEO's agility studies.
We found that there are some companies in every industry that have been particularly good at moving agilely with the changed environment and have been able to be outstanding performers, if not the very best performers, over 30 years.
These companies practiced at least 3 out of 4 agility routines. By perceiving future environmental changes, strategizing dynamically, testing a variety of responses to external pressures, and implementing changes in technology and operations. In the last few years, researchers have been merging frameworks for agility with ideas around sustainable effectiveness.
Agile, built-to-change organizations really held the possibility of being organizations that could produce sustainable effectiveness. And we compared a sustainable management organization to a traditional command and control type of organization, to a high involvement organization, thinking about how an organization could be agile and sustainable at the same time.
So we broadened out a little bit the dimensions of the organization we considered needed to change and the outcomes that it needed to look at, that did need to look more at the environmental impact and the social impact of its change processes.
The whole question of HR being a strategic partner is one that's been at the core of what CEO has done for its whole 35-year history.
According to CEO's global analysis of HR, less than 1/3 of HR leaders report they have full partnership with their executive boards. Over the last 10 years, CEO's researchers have been developing a decision science based on strategic talent and human capital.
If you look at the evolution of finance, marketing, logistics, information technology, all of them in part became powerful because they at some point adopted not just common measures but a common point of view about the logic of how their resource works.
More and more we're seeing HR embracing data, embracing measurement, wanting to be able to be more scientific in the decisions that are made around people.
One of the major keys to becoming a strategic partner is also in building the confidence of business leaders to listen and recognize the strategies and insights of HR executives.
That the HR organization can come to the business leadership and say, you're going to do damage to the culture if you pursue this strategy in a certain way. For example, one of my guest speakers in my class was an HR leader who was involved in the financial services industry doing a lot of acquisitions. And the story I have her tell is that she basically said, we're not going to do this billion-dollar acquisition unless you're prepared to invest $250,000 in culture building.
More companies than ever are adopting new HRIS technology. But what is the real impact of these systems? This is the subject of a new multi-year study recently launched by CEO, which is building on multiple streams of prior research from the last 35 years.
One of the major changes happening in HR departments across the country was that huge dollars were being invested in new information technology. HRIS systems like Workday, human capital management, software applications that automated different HR processes, social media, analytics software, and I was very curious about what would be the value of all of the software and how does it change organizations, and probably most importantly, how do we design and implement software implementations so that they're as successful as possible.
We believe that it is very important to have a partnership with the best of the best within the city, and that took us, of course, to Ed Lawler, John Boudreau, and the CEO.
One of the great aspects of the center is the networking component, really creating and fostering an environment where our sponsor community feels comfortable picking up the phone and calling other sponsors, picking up the phone, calling myself and Ed Lawler and saying, hey, we need to talk about this issue.
Often our first call is to CEO to say, who else is facing this? How are they solving it? What are the best practices that you've seen?
So it's really a relationship that we've gotten a lot out of because they really have been willing to change and to grow with us.
The Strategic Organization Design Workshop is one of the largest educational offerings at CEO. Beyond the workshop, participants can work towards a certificate in organization design, which is built around 3 modules. The last one involves tackling a real design issue with peer consulting and coaching from researchers. One of the most recent collaborations between sponsors and researchers is NextGen, the largest generational study of millennials in the workforce. By 2020, millennials will make up over half of the American workforce, and by 2030, they'll make up 75%. Based on the sheer size of this demographic, companies will need to rethink both policies and practices. NextGen is helping companies better understand their future employees.
One of the biggest pressures we face and one of the biggest challenges we face is that we have a 200,000 person workforce, the majority of which are millennials.
Having an appreciation of what that workforce wants and what are the changes and what do we look for as far as synergies between the younger workforce and our more senior leaders.
And to be able to call CEO in and take a look at it and get hard data around what the change has been and what we need to do to react to it, it was, it's been invaluable.
We are now raising a generation of people, of young people who are coming into the workforce who recognize that they can't rely on organizations to provide them the safety net that previous generations thought that they could. And so organizations today are wanting to know how can you actually engage with this generation in a way that's a win-win for both the organization and for the employees, so they'll want to give you their all when they're there.
The major area that I'm passionate about is how you can create organizations that actually address the needs of humanity as well as of business and wealth creation.
Companies today face challenges greater than any previous generation, from environmental degradation to social justice and human health. CEO is developing a global sustainable effectiveness network, connecting leaders to share knowledge and ideas around new organizational design approaches to sustainable effectiveness.
The term sustainable effectiveness really captures what we're trying to do here at CEO in terms of helping organizations organize to produce sustainable outcomes and then helping them to organize in such a way that they can sustain those outcomes over time.
So we have a better appreciation for what does the future look like and how do we change our culture in order to address what that future is.
In February 2014, CEO organized a conference around corporate stewardship, bringing together top executives and HR leaders to share ways they are addressing today's issues with new sustainability initiatives.
The other factor is the human aspect of this. We employ people in a lot of emerging markets such as Bangladesh, where we have over 1,000 employees, and making sure that we provide terrific working conditions that are every bit as good as working conditions here in the Western world. Living wages, opportunities, life skills for women. These are really important aspects for us when we think about the broader issue of sustainability.
I think our contributions to the body of knowledge on how sustainability will actually, and corporate stewardship, will drive the change we want to see in the world.
Today, researchers can reach thousands of people through online articles, blogs, and webinars. Surveys are done online with rapid results. This year marks another milestone, as the Center publishes its first online book on organization agility. CEO would like to thank its sponsor community, staff, and network of researchers at USC and beyond for their enduring support and collaboration through the years.
I just want to wish happy anniversary to CEO. It's been an incredible 35 years, and I look forward to 35 more.
And it's an absolute joy to work with all of you. So thank you very much for all your help. You make us better every day.